We have some gorgeous eye candy, a solar storm fizzle, and some massive far-side eruptions. These stories and more are in this week's Spotlight. Space weather this week has given us a lot of eye candy. As we take a look at our Earth-facing disk, we've been watching a number of regions, including 3917, 3924, and 3920. All of these have been giving us little pops and whistles in terms of solar flares, but not any super big eruptions. In fact, region 3920 on the 14th fires off this kind of stealthy solar storm. It's really hard to see, but it begins to destabilize this filament, this big long worm-like filament, as you can see here. When we take a look in coronagraphs for this eruption, though, what we see is a very big but slow-moving halo, and this thing is actually Earth-directed. So we are watching this thing kind of going, well, it's going to be really slow eruption, but then region 3924, as it continues its little activity, it then pops off what looks like could be a solar storm eruption. You see this here. It lights up this whole segment in here, but when we look in coronagraphs, we don't really see anything. So we think it's probably a failed solar storm launch. Still, however, it begins to really destabilize this filament, and then whoosh, do you see that? It launches, but it also lights up these old regions again. So there's this whole huge thing by the 15th that launches partially Earth-directed with a lot of material. So when we take a look in coronagraphs, you can see this massive partial halo, and we weren't even sure this thing was going to be Earth-directed at all. But remember, there was a solar storm in front of that. So believe it or not, when this actually launched, we ended up getting a solar storm, but you might not have even noticed. We had the solar storm hit yesterday, but it ended up being very much a fizzle because the magnetic field was oriented the wrong way. So sadly, even though it was a really strong solar storm, there wasn't much aurora that was produced by it. Still, if you saw this back here, did you see that big blast? Let me back it up a little bit. You can watch it. Whoosh, do you see that back and forth? Watch this thing kind of evacuate out like that. Boom, right there. That was a big far-sided eruption. Look at this monster. This thing is a very intense solar storm, likely from old regions 3905 and 06 that we'll be talking about here coming up shortly. But after that blast, things really quieted down for a bit. We did have another failed filament launch right here. You can see this. This was definitely a fizzle. We basically had to wait for region 3905. You can watch it right on the boom, right there on the east limb. That fires off a gorgeous eruption, and that causes a secondary eruption. When we look in coronagraphs, sadly, neither of these are Earth-directed solar storms. So, once again, gorgeous eye candy, but nothing Earth-directed for aurora photographers. However, as we continue watching the far side, we had this massive solar storm eruption. Look at this huge halo. This thing was so incredibly large. As you can see, it made a gorgeous eruption clear in the C3 field of view, way far out. This shock and the speed of the solar storm is incredibly fast. Thank goodness it was far-sighted, but it sure makes us wonder what's coming around the bend, because it does look, as we see these regions rotating into view now, we do expect to see more big solar flares and big solar storms coming in this next week, so be sure to keep your eyes on the sun. So what else does our sun have in store for us this week? Well, we can no longer use stereo A imagery to look at the far side of the sun, because stereo A is looking at the same side of the sun as we are. So in this case, we're using the NISP gong imagery of about 2 weeks ago to get an idea of what type of active regions are still lurking on the sun's far side. And as we set this in motion, you can immediately see region 3905 and 06. These were big flare players the last rotation we saw them, and they are definitely causing havoc on the sun's far side now. In fact, these regions are the ones that fired at least one of those big far side eruptions, and they are going to be rotating back into Earth view here over the next couple days. But they're not the only players. As you can see, we've got several others that we'll be seeing on the far side as we take a look at the gong helioseismology far-sighted monitor. Now you can see as we set this in motion, here's these regions as they were beginning to rotate to the sun's far side, and what we're looking for on the far side, which is this region in here, we're looking for these white dots to appear. So you can watch region 3905 definitely surviving their far side passage, but also region 3912 and 3910. In fact, as we take a look, if I back this up just a little bit, you can see a place here where we've got region 3912 3912 right there. Look at this. We definitely have a big region underneath 3912. In fact, this might be the region that caused that massive far side halo, that beautiful symmetric thing that we saw. So in about a week's time, we're going to see this region rotate back into Earth view, and along with region 3905 and 06, this means we're going to have a big chance for big, maybe possibly X-class flares again, as well as a lot of solar flux and radio noise, and of course the chance for really big Earth-directed solar storms. So aurora photographers and everyone else, man, all eyes need to be on the sun over this next week. Switching to our moon, we are now passing through the third quarter phase on our way to a new moon, and by the 25th, the moon will only be about 27% illuminated. So you night sky watchers, if you want to catch those dim objects in the sky, well, now is your perfect chance. Switching to our solar storm conditions and aurora possibilities over the coming week, we are now calming down from that solar storm fizzle and that filament launch that is missing Earth right now, but it is giving us some fast solar wind. So at high latitudes, NOAA is expecting unsettled conditions with up to about a 30% chance of minor storms over the next day or two. Then by the weekend, things should be pretty much settled down. And then we're kind of in hurry up and wait mode because we're not expecting all that much. We don't have any more fast solar wind on the way. We are kind of in the wait mode to see whether or not we're going to get any big solar storms because those new regions rotating into Earth view. At mid-latitudes, the outlook is about the same. We're expecting unsettled conditions, even with this fast solar wind, with about a 25% chance of active conditions over the next day or two. Then things really begin to quiet down. But again, these forecasts may not last all that long because we do have those big solar storm producers, and they could change this forecast very quickly for aurora photographers. Now, switching to our solar flare and dayside radio blackout outlook over the coming week, we are sitting well into the triple digits. In fact, by the end of the week, we could be up into the 200s when it comes to solar flux, and this is because of those returning regions 3905, 06, and possibly 3912 that could be very big flare players. So expect to see that solar flux rise. We're also sitting at moderate noise on the dayside radio bands, but that could also rise as we move into the next upcoming week. NOAA's giving us about a 40% chance of M-class flares. This is at the R1 to R2 level radio blackout level, and also about a 5% chance of X-class flares at an R3 level radio blackout. But again, this is likely going to rise over this next week as those bigger flare players rotate into Earth view. So everybody hold on to your hats because it could get pretty noisy. Now, switching to our radiation storm and polar aviation outlook over the coming week, everything is in the green this week when it comes to radiation storms. We're sitting at the D1 normal range. This is at flight level 360 for you aviators. It's also the S0 quiet range for everyone else. Right now, NOAA is giving us only about a 5% chance of a radiation storm at the S1 to S2 level, and this is likely going to be true for the rest of this week. And this is because we don't really have any big flare players in Earth view, and even when those returning regions rotate into Earth view, not quite sure they're going to give us all that much while they're on the east limb, but expect over next week this risk to rise quite a bit as those regions start rotating closer to center disk. So you aviators, and this does include flight crew and you frequent flyers, pay attention to those ICAO advisories in the next few days and over this next week because these conditions likely are going to change. So the space weather this week is full of a lot of eye candy. We have had a lot of eruptions that haven't been Earth directed, but we do have the chance for that to change here over this next week as new regions rotate into Earth view from the sun's far side, and they have been launching some whoppers. So aurora photographers, don't worry about the fizzle that we've been having. Just kind of sit tight here over this next week, and we could get some bigger storms on the way. Now, amateur radio operators and emergency responders, enjoy the quiet right now on the dayside radio bands because this is likely going to change over this next week as these big regions rotate back into Earth view and we start getting the big flares like big radio blackouts again. So just expect that the noise on the bands is going to rise over the next few days and into next week, and just kind of hunker down. And now you GPS users, well, the same kind of thing. Enjoy the relative quiet right now because things are likely going to change in about a week. And as long as you're vigilant near dawn and near dusk, your GPS reception, at least over the next few days, should be pretty top notch. I'm Tamara Scove, the Space Weather Woman. Thank you for watching.
Hello, it's just me.
Welcome to the WIA National News and the Alara edition. WIA News is on RF, text and streamed live from our hub on wia.org.au.
National News. This week you'll hear from not only WIA President and the WIA Returning Officer, but from the Australian Ladies Amateur Radio Association, Alara, and VK7QP, Linda, VK5YL, Shirley, VK4, SWE, Lynn. Now wait, there's much more in this edition of news from the Wireless Institute of Australia. From Alara, I'm President Michelle, VK2, AYL. Joining me now, WIA President Scott.
Many thanks, Michelle, and thank you to everybody at Alara for the work you do to support ladies in amateur radio. This is WIA President Scott Williams, VK3KJ, and welcome to all listeners to this Christmas edition of the National News broadcast. It's been another huge year for the WIA, and I just cannot believe the end of the year is upon us so quickly. There are many highlights we could discuss for the year. However, the thing that really stands out to me is how fortunate and privileged the WIA is to have so many active, committed serving volunteers within our organisation. There are too many names to list. However, our members and volunteers is what makes the WIA what it is, an organisation focused on the betterment of amateur radio in Australia. There is no doubt one of the key messages in 2024 is we are under siege to maintain amateur radio spectrum. The drums are beating loud, and maintaining spectrum will be a key focus in 2025 and beyond. Our membership of the International Amateur Radio Union, IARU, will assist us as we take on this huge task of protecting spectrum, which is allocated to us. Without spectrum, we have no bands and therefore no hobby. So when you are a member of the WIA, or you are thinking of joining, you are essentially contributing to a fighting fund, a fund which we take the fight up at all levels to advocate on our hobby's behalf. There is no doubt we want to see new bands like 60 metres introduced. However, sometimes just maintaining the status quo of what we currently have is seen as a win. Many hours, weeks, and even months are put into advocacy work within the WIA, and as I said, no change is sometimes a great outcome. I want to take this opportunity to thank all of our members, clubs, volunteers, the WIA board, and to the many stakeholders that the WIA engage with all around the world. We wish you and your families a very Merry Christmas, prosperous and safe 2025. To you, Graham, on behalf of everybody at the WIA, thank you for your tireless work in bringing us this broadcast every week without fail. I look forward to the year ahead, and this has been Scott Williams, WIA President. Merry Christmas to you all.
Thanks, Scott. Now for some very important news from our returning officer.
Thank you. Election of directors for the WIA. In early November, I announced that nominations to become a director of the WIA were open. There are 4 positions up for election this time around. Nominating for positions of the WIA director closed at 2:30 p.m. on 16 December 2024. At the conclusion of the period allowed for nominations, there were 5 nominations. Accordingly, an election will now be held by ballot. Details of the nominees will be emailed to all members and published on the January-February edition of Amateur Radio Magazine. Members must be financial as at 31 December 2024 in order to vote in this election. Election material will be sent by email to all members, so please check the membership portal to ensure that your correct email address is recorded. This year, the election will be held electronically with an option for a postal vote. Application for a postal vote was printed on the reverse side of the Amateur Radio Magazine's November-December issues address label. An application for a postal vote is also available for download from the WIA website. A link for the application for a postal vote is in the text edition of this broadcast. Registration for a postal vote has been open since November and will close at 2:30 p.m. on Tuesday, 24 December 2024. An application for a postal vote may be posted to the WIA post office box or delivered to the national office or sent by email to the returning officer, details of which are on the application for postal vote form. This announcement has been spoken and authorized by Pete Cherry, VK2LP, the returning officer of the Wireless Institute of Australia. Now back to the special Alara edition of the WIA National News.
This is Linda, VK7QP. On Sunday, this broadcast goes out on repeaters all over VK7 and on digital radio, DMR Talk Group 5 and D-Star Reflector 91C. We also go out on UHF-CB Channel 15 in Hobart. You can hear this broadcast again on Tuesday night at 8 o'clock on the repeaters VK7RAA in northern VK7 and VK7RAD in southern VK7.
Australiana. Researchers from the University of South Australia have developed an innovative nighttime navigation system for drones by combining celestial navigation with vision-based technology. Designed for environments where GPS is unreliable or unavailable, the system identifies stars in images captured by drones and compares them to a database, achieving positioning within 4 kilometres during tests on a fixed-wing drone. Unlike traditional star-based navigation systems, this solution is lightweight, cost-effective, and does not require stabilisation hardware, making it suitable for smaller drones. Australia's competition watchdog said there was a need to revisit efforts to ensure greater choice for internet users, citing Google's dominant search engine market share and its competitors' failure to capitalise on the artificial intelligence boom. Australia has intensified the spotlight on the tech giants, which are mostly in the US. It was the first country to make social media platforms pay media outlets royalties for sharing their content, and last month it passed a law that bans social media for children aged under 16, and has proposed a law that could impose fines of up to $50 million on tech giants if they suppress competition and prevent consumers from switching between services. These proposed measures have been agreed in principle by the government, ACCC said, and it will close its inquiry by next March. Ahead of international news, let's look at education. Northeast Radio Group, NERG, training courses. NERG have 3 accredited assessors and conduct regular in-person training at their Briar Hill club rooms. In-person training provides students a more interactive environment to learn, ask questions, and meet like-minded people. NERG will continue in-person training in 2025, with foundation training and exams, one-day training and exam session the 4th Saturday of the month starting in February, standard and advanced exams also the 4th Saturday of the month, and advanced training sessions Tuesday night over a 12 to 14 week period commencing Tuesday the 11th of February. Everyone interested in attending one of these sessions should contact NERG via email or visit the NERG website. That's nerg.asn.au.
You're tuned to VK1 WIA and the WIA National News Service on RF, text and streamed live from our hub on wia.org.au.
This is Shirley, VK5 Yankee Lima, reading the WIA news for the Sunday before Christmas. The IARU monitoring system has released a log with accompanying video of hundreds of examples of non-amateur transmissions taking place across the amateur radio HF bands during 2024. Examples include DRM broadcasts from Communications University of China, super down radars from across the globe, CODAR, British over-the-air radar, as well as CBers and pirate radio operators. All these hundreds of non-amateur transmissions, the majority of them long-lasting, are a big annoyance for we amateur radio operators that try to enjoy our hobby in the bands that are allocated to us for that purpose, as they drastically reduce the usable spectrum in these bands. Click through to the PDF to see the YouTube videos of SDR recordings of many of these instances of non-amateur transmissions. Graduation day came early for a group of students at Staten Island Technical High School in the USA, an ARRL education model school that grew out of the League's Teachers Institute on Wireless Technology. 159 students, that's correct, 159 took and passed their FCC licensing exams, 18 of them upgrading to General and Amateur Extra. The program is overseen at the school by teacher Everton Henriques, Kilo Delta 2 Zulu Zulu Tango. The world turns its attention to Kolkata as Hamfest India 24 when it opened its doors to hundreds from the international amateur radio community. Delegates representing the amateur radio community from Nepal, Oman, Germany, Dubai, the US, and more than 16 states from around India converged in Kolkata on the 14th and 15th of December. The National Amateur Radio Convention took place at the sister Nivedita University and was hosted by Oscar India. Oscar India is an organization with an educational mission, and its name stands for Open Source Classes for Amateur Radio. Participants included representatives from the Nagaland State Disaster Management Authority, the National Disaster Response Force, the India Meteorological Department, and the National Disaster Management Authority. Still in Kolkata, India, a student from New Barrackpore who was suffering from memory loss and went missing a couple of years ago was found in a Prayagraya asylum. He had been arrested by UP police. The student was reunited with his family thanks to the efforts of a member of a group of Bengali tourists. During a charity event at the asylum, they interacted with the boy and took the initiative to contact ham radio enthusiasts whose efforts facilitated the reunion between Saka and his family. Ambarish Nagbiswar, secretary of West Bengal Ham Radio Club, said some of his member hams were able to trace the boy's parents and reunite them. In South Africa, the SARL Centenary Technical Symposium will take place Saturday, 22nd of March 2025. To encourage as many as possible radio amateurs and technology enthusiasts in South Africa and beyond to participate in the event, it will be virtual and hosted on the WebEx video platform. Theme of the symposium is 100 Years of Technology in Amateur Radio, the Foundation for Continuous Innovation. The symposium will include a brief view of the exceptional contributions South African radio amateurs have made to technology and the opportunities for technology innovation taking amateur radio forward. During 2025, the SARL, with the aid of its members and associated clubs, will be on the air with a special event call sign Zulu Sierra 100 Sierra Alpha Romeo Lima SAQ Grimetone to transmit CW Christmas message December 24th. On Christmas Eve morning, Tuesday, December 24th, 2024, SAQ Grimetone is scheduled to be on the air to send out their traditional Christmas message to the whole world using the 200 kilowatt Alexanderson alternator built in 1924 on 17.2 kHz CW. Transmission and YouTube live stream 07:25 UTC. Live stream on YouTube begins 0800 UTC. Transmission of a Christmas message from SAQ. Test transmissions will occur on Friday, December the 20th at 1200 to 1500 UTC. The amateur radio station Sierra Kilo 6 Sierra Alpha Quebec will be on the air throughout the day. This is VK5 Yankee Lima, wishing all our listeners a happy Christmas and a safe New Year. 73.
This is the Australian Ladies Amateur Radio Association, ALARA, presentation, which we do several times each year, including very close to Christmas.
This is Lynn, VK4 SWE. Operational news. Contests still to run in 2024. In December each year, the Radio Amateurs of Canada, RAC, sponsors the Canada Winter Contest. And yes, the name Canada is correct. Amateurs all over the world are invited to participate on December 28. If you are entering, check out the current rules on the RAC PDF, which is available here on Australia's National News Service Text Edition. Best read at wia.org.au. YOTA Contest. Youth on the Air Test 3 of 3 will be from 10 to 21:59 UTC on the 29th of December on the 5 classic bands CW and SSB. Now, contest-wise 2025. VHF UHF Field Day. Upcoming contest date and time. Summer 2025, 0100 UTC, Saturday 18th January through 0059 UTC, Sunday 19th January. Australia Day Contest, January 26th. Amateurs in VK will endeavour to contact other amateurs around the world. Some VK operators will be using the AX prefix to celebrate Australia Day, as it's wanted by many amateurs around the world. Scoring is distance-based and calculated using 4-character grid squares. It is held on the Australia Day public holiday, that being the 26th of January. Harry Angel Memorial 80-metre Sprint, Saturday, May 3rd. VK Shires Contest, 7th to the 8th of June 2025. Trans-Tasman Low Band Contest, 19th of July 2025. The Trans-Tasman Contest, held on the third weekend in July, aims to encourage low band activity between VK and ZL. Only contest bands 160, 80 and 40 metres are allowed, with SSB, CW and digital. That's RTTY or PSK. DX Window to the World. Polish amateurs have activations planned to celebrate Christmas and the New Year. Listen for HF Zero Clause and SP Zero Clause on the air now through January 6th. Starting in January, members of the British Railways Amateur Radio Society will be operating special event station Golf Bravo 0 LMR to celebrate 200 years of the modern railway. A year-long celebration of how the railway has shaped Britain. QSL station Golf Bravo 0 LMR via the Bureau or direct by sending a stamped addressed envelope to Mark, Golf 1, Papa India Echo. During 2025, the SARL will be on the air with special event call sign ZS100 SARL, as well as the permanent call signs ZS6 SRL and ZS9HQ, and possibly other special event call signs as well. Celebrating the Jewish holiday of Hanukkah, the Israel Association of Radio Communication, formerly known as Israel Amateur Radio Club, will be running special event stations 4X8NER and 4Z8NER from 25th December to the 2nd of January. QSL these two stations via Logbooks of the World, EQSL, or via 4 Zulu 5 Mike Uniform. Victor India 2025 Alpha Juliet. Australian Scout Jamboree 2025. From the 5th to the 16th of January 2025, yes, about 2 weeks away, Scouts will be operating an on-site radio base from Maryborough, Queensland. 2 HF stations on SSB and FT8 on multiple HF bands. Victor India 2025 Alpha Juliet is on a QRZ page.
You're tuned to VK1 WIA and the WIA National News Service on RF, text and streamed live from our hub on wia.org.au.
This is Linda, VK7QP. Worldwide Special Interest Groups, Astronomy and Wireless Weather. Superflares on sun-like stars. Now we have to worry about superflares. A new study published in Science and reported in spaceweather.com concludes that sun-like stars in the Milky Way produce superflares approximately once every 100 years. Superflares are solar flares more than 50 times stronger than the Carrington event. If one were to hit Mother Earth, it could bring down power grids, disable satellite networks, and more. Led by Valery Vasilev of the Max Planck Institute in Göttingen, Germany, a team of 10 astronomers looked at brightness measurements of over 56,000 sun-like stars, far more than any previous study. The data were collected by NASA's Kepler Space Telescope between 2009 and 2018. Eclipses can generate ripples in Earth's atmosphere called atmospheric gravity waves. Similar to how water forms waves when disturbed, air in the atmosphere reacts in the same way when influenced by a dramatic event like a solar eclipse. During the April 8, 2024 total solar eclipse, scientists observed the ionosphere rising in altitude during the eclipse and descending back to its normal height afterward. Meanwhile, ham radio operators participating in the Ham-Sci project generated over 52 million data points by sending and receiving signals before, during and after the eclipse. Their efforts revealed that ionospheric conditions improved for low-frequency signals between 1 and 7 MHz, but worsened at higher frequencies, 10 MHz and above. These variations provide insight into how solar eclipses affect radio communications and the behavior of charged particles in the ionosphere. Worldwide Special Interest Groups, CW. As reported back in October here on WIA National News, a Romanian teenager won an international high-speed telegraphy world championship in Tunisia after setting a new world record for receiving call signs sent using CW. Now Ionis Scutari Y08YNS is one of the many stars in a new BBC radio documentary about the power Morse code has as a communication protocol. The doco, Ready to Transmit, is hosted by Stephen Coates and was released early this month, December. To hear the documentary, visit the link in the text version of this week's script. Best read at wia.org.au. Worldwide Special Interest Groups, Final Frontier. Experiment Module Kibo aboard the International Space Station did deploy LignoSat, that wooden satellite, but amateur radio satellite enthusiasts who were ready to decode telemetry from the satellite are reporting there's been no reception of either CW or AX25 packets on the satellite's coordinated frequency of 435.820 MHz. At the time of its construction in the 1950s, the Dwingaloo Radio Observatory in the Netherlands was one of the largest rotatable telescopes in the world, with a dish diameter of 25 meters. After a restoration project, the telescope is now a National Heritage Site in the Netherlands, where it is also available for use by radio amateurs. Recently, this group was able to receive signals from Voyager 1. Famously, Voyager 1 is the furthest man-made object from Earth, having been launched on a trajectory out of the solar system in 1977. As a result of distance and age, the signals it sends out are incredibly faint, but a ham radio group was successfully able to receive the Voyager 1 signal on this telescope. Normally, Voyager 1 is received using the Deep Space Network, a series of much larger dishes stationed around the world. Worldwide Special Interest Groups, IOTA, OC042. Listen for the call sign DU10E from Luzon Island, IOTA number OC042 in the Philippines until the 27th of December on 40 to 6 meters using all modes. Does working these rarish islands interest you? If you're passionate about amateur radio and love exploring unique locations, the IOTA program is an exciting challenge. IOTA, Islands on the Air, was founded way back in 1964. It connects radio enthusiasts with islands worldwide, offering a blend of adventure and friendly competition. Whether you're an island chaser or an island activator, there's a world of islands to explore, with a rich history of awards, rankings and achievements. Want to know more about how you can get involved in this thrilling activity? The link is iota-world.org. This is a good place to start, but may I also suggest delving into a great item shown this week at the link we like, unicomradio.com/iota. Worldwide Special Interest Groups, Radio Amateur Young Timers, YOTA, Youngsters on the Air. When the International Space Station passed over Loudoun County in Virginia, USA, a bunch of young students couldn't believe their ears. They heard Lost in Space astronaut Suni Williams and were able to talk with her from their Hillsborough Charter Academy. The call lasted about 10 minutes, and the students and teachers were able to ask her a variety of questions about life in space. Questions from the students ranged from how astronauts bathed in space to the best innovation on the ISS. If you could wish for one item right now, what would it be? The answer given was her dog. She said she really missed her animals back down on Earth. This is Linda, VK7QP, wishing you a happy Christmas.
Across Australia from VK1 WIA, you're tuned to the WIA National News Service. It can be heard on ANZAL, that's the Australian and New Zealand Echolink multimode network. The news is automatically rebroadcast every Sunday at 10 a.m. VK3 time. Thanks. This is second operator Helen using John's VK3 HJQ call sign.
It's a date. Clubs are welcome to email text with audio for this section. Details of all WIA affiliated clubs and societies can be found on the WIA website, including email addresses and website links. 2025 VK7 Reist Car Boot Sale January the 19th at 11 a.m. VK6 Parge Fest Peel Amateur Radio Group held February the 15th 9 a.m. at Mandurah Bowling Club 89 Ulnut Street. VK4 Gold Coast Amateur Radio Society 2025 Hamfest November the 9th at the Country Paradise Parklands 231 Bow Desert Nerang Road. And of course VK, the Australian Ladies Amateur Radio Association 50th anniversary, with a celebration lunch being held in Glen Waverley, Victoria on Saturday the 26th of July 2025. Email president@alara.org. Thank you for listening to the Alara edition of the WIA broadcast. For more information about Alara, visit our webpage www.alara.org.au. And thank you very much to the Alara newsreaders, VK7QP, Linda, VK5YL Shirley, and VK4SWE Lynn. I would like to wish you all a very Merry Christmas, as this is the last broadcast before December the 25th. From Alara, I'm President Michelle, VK2 AYL.
This has been the Alara edition of WIA National News. WIA News is on RF, text and streamed live from our hub on wia.org.au.
That's fine. Okay, bye.
Courtesy of Bevan, VK5 BD's ATV and YouTube channel, this has been WIA National News. We're back now, live and local, and